Okay, hi, and welcome to the last part of the lecture series for today's topics. And it's just going to be a little bit of a summary section with covering one new last concept, but really it's all in supporting this idea and concept of lifelong engagement in wellness and this concept of wellness and the dimensions of wellness and how does one stay persistent and have consistency as far as their efforts in this engagement of wellness. And I think one of the best concepts or most helpful concepts that I had come across when I was going through some academic work and research afterwards, when I was looking at change and how to change and who changes, what sort of people have success with this, especially when I was trying to discover more information and research about this to help clients in my kinesiology work. I came across this concept and idea that was reinforced in research about having a growth mindset. And so people generally, again, this is a bit of a spectrum here, but can have two different points as far as their mindsets. They can have a growth mindset or a fixed mindset. And ultimately what determines which of these perspectives you have relates to your opinion or thoughts or view as to whether people can change in their skills, intelligence, or just general capacity in different metrics in their life. And there's a number of different consequences or perspectives or effects that having this one viewpoint or perspective can have on your outlook on life. And so to kind of compare the two, a growth mindset, when we see others succeed in life, we find inspiration in that. Whereas someone with a fixed mindset, so someone that thinks people's skill sets, their intelligence, their capacity to do certain skills or engage in certain ideas when life is set, when they see other people succeed, they tend to find that they're envious of this, and they tend to find that as a problem or a threat to themselves, because if other people are successful, that means they're innately better, right? If you're coming from a fixed mindset. And that can be hard on someone's ego, meaning feeling like you're less good than others. So again, going back to a growth mindset, if you see others succeed and you believe anyone has the capacity to change or improve their skill set, such as intelligence, then you get inspired by that. You see other people succeed, you're like, yes, well, I can too, if, like that person, I put in work, time, and effort and build my skill set in that area. Okay. So other areas and ways this comes up is because of this perspective that if I put in work and continued effort, I can get better at something. We tend to find people with growth mindsets are more persistent in achieving their goals. Whereas people with a fixed mindset, they give up easily. And that kind of makes sense if you think your perspective is, oh, the world is the way it is. I can't do anything to change it. I can't improve my own skill set. So if I'm not just innately or just immediately good at this new thing I'm trying out, why would I continue to try to get better at it, right? And as a consequence of that, people with a fixed mindset don't really want to engage in new and different challenges, right? Why would you try to learn something new or challenge yourself if every time you go to try that new challenge, that's one more thing that you might not be innately good at, which would then therefore mean you aren't innately good at things or good at a certain skill set. Okay. And then kind of the last part of that as well is people with a growth mindset, when they hear things such as feedback or, you could phrase it as criticism, what they do is they'll take that in as a learning point and something to integrate into their next effort towards something. And that can be the same as failure. Failure isn't seen as that. It's seen as an opportunity to kind of reflect and take note on what went wrong on the last attempt and being able to use that in your effort in your next attempt as you try again, right? Because you're just going to continue building and growing on this skill set. Again, a fixed mindset, again, if things are just innately characteristic for people, we can't change them. From this perspective, if you get feedback or criticism on something, that's an attack at you, because that's an innate property you have. It's not just a capacity or skill set that you can build and work on. So again, let's kind of tie this kind of thought in this mindsets back to health and wellness. So if someone has a growth mindset and are trying to approach wellness with that mindset, it's very much a process. It's very much something that throughout life we can continue to improve on and get better at. Whereas someone with a fixed mindset might look at something like their health and wellness and be like, well, it just is what it is. I can't really actionably take action towards anything to help improve my wellness. It's just the way life is. And this comes back to a little bit to self-efficacy. You can hopefully see how that might have parallels or ties to that. And so again, if we're looking for lifelong engagement, we want to have a growth mindset. So maybe you're like hearing these things, you're kind of taking in this information, and maybe you identify yourself as a bit more of a fixed mindset. Maybe, family or friends that seem to have a bit more of a fixed mindset, and maybe you want to change that. So I was typically in the past have been presented with this information, but I've never really been told what to do with it if you're not in a growth mindset. So let's say you identify you're in a fixed mindset, but you're like open to the idea like, hey, maybe I can change this. Maybe you're at a contemplation stage of changing your mindset. So things that typically you can do to help shift out of a fixed mindset and into a growth mindset is, one, just understanding these differences, but two, you can embrace challenges. So when you see these new challenges, see them as just things to try and overcome. Realize that when you're working on something that you need to have some persistence. So when you're met with a setback, take that, be okay with that and move forward. I think the big thing with that is, and with criticism and feedback and that sort of thing, is reflecting. So oftentimes when we're met with these challenges, especially if you're someone of a fixed mindset, it causes a very visceral response and an emotional response. And I think that happens for everyone, growth mindset or fixed. It's hard to take in feedback sometimes, or criticism, or failures, or setbacks. But once that has had time to settle, really try to reframe and reflect on that process and say, okay, well, I felt like it was a failure at first, but if I can reframe that and see that this is just a learning moment and moving forward in the future, I want to keep trying to reach this goal or this new challenge that I have in front of me. And I'm going to try a new strategy or something. And I think that's really a big shift in thinking. And again, it takes time for that to be a bit more of an automatic response versus something that takes a bit of effort. But again, shifting that growth mindset really sets you up for a lot of success in a lot of different areas of your life, even outside of, say, health and wellness, but school, interpersonal relationships, everything. So that's my selling point for growth mindset there. So that's good. Let's say, we've managed to kind of obtain this growth mindset. We're moving forward. How does that fit into our stages of change and our habit building and everything like that? Well, just a bit of a reminder that once we have these habits built, or we reach the final end of our stages of change, when we get there, the idea is to have these automated and integrated habits in our lives. So we want to have our habits not really thought about, they're just completed. They don't require willpower, there's no motivation regularly with these things. We've already done that in our earlier stages of change. At this point in time, these things are automatic, and we might even integrate that part of our identity and value system now. Yes, I exercise 6 days a week because that's just something that I do and is important to me. that sort of thing. And once that inertia is rolling, again, we have a bit of a snowball effect. And typically, although it can happen, relapse into behaviors after the termination phase doesn't typically happen. Usually some large traumatic event, emotionally, physically, will happen with a person before there's a bit of a relapse, or some major cue or trigger that the person just has a challenge, again, emotionally or mentally dealing with, will sometimes cause a relapse. The nice thing is, though, the longer and more persistent the habits have been and the more automated the behavior has been, the easier it is to obtain it after a relapse again. So just a couple of notes there for you. Okay, well, let's kind of put everything together now, in particular the stages of change and when these habits and habit building components come together in a bit of a chronological order. Because right now we have a number of different ideas that we've come across over the various lectures, and I thought it'd just be nice to see it in one place. So first of all, we start in pre-contemplation. Again, this is from our stages of change model. And at this point in time, people don't think there's anything wrong. There's nothing that needs changing. Everything's going great. There's no awareness about any changes. Then we get into contemplation and people are like, you know what, maybe I should start changing some aspect of my wellness. Maybe in any time between now and 6 months from now. Once we get into the preparation phase, again, this is that kind of blended phase where we are starting to plan and inherently are taking small actions to change this behavior. And so at this point in time, we are starting to build motivation. We have our habit observation and planning. So what I mean by that is like our health journaling and kind of reflecting on our day-to-day practice, trying to evaluate roughly where our kind of wellness states on our dimensions lie at that point in time. And we can also get into our goal setting and contract writing as well. And just a note with our habit planning, that includes our habit statements and our planning out our habit stacking and stuff like that. It might not necessarily be the implementation of, but it definitely is the planning. And I think inherently that is partially, again, within this month of kind of pre-action, but I also think it's action. Once we're actually at that stage of action, we're implementing our habit stacking. We are implementing our environmental habit changes. We are tracking things. We are following through on our plan. Once we've done that for 6 months, we're in this maintenance phase, right? So we're in this new habit loop. We have our habit stacking we're still doing and actively doing over and over. We have rewards that help reinforce that behavior in our habit loop. And again, just a maintenance phase. And once we've done that for over 6 months, maybe up to a year, depending on the habit, we reach termination, or as we're discussing, automation. Okay. Now the thing I add in here is you can actually loop and kind of stay at this automation stage for a bit. And it's just like reinforcing that new habit loop until we don't think about it. And that can just stay there permanently as an automated fixture. But a lot of people, once they've reached this automation with a certain behavior, they start looking at other behaviors. So they'll go back to the preparation phase and start motivation building and habit planning for a new behavior to change as far as their wellness. And at that point in time, really a lot of the old behaviors after, you've gone through another maintenance into termination and et cetera, once you've done this a few times and you've moved a few points of areas of wellness forward within your life, you really start integrating that into your own identity. And once that's part of your value set, a growth mindset, a wellness focused mindset, that's where you see really big changes and that integration into your identity. And at that point in time, again, changing wellness, moving wellness forward, it doesn't require a lot of willpower or motivation to continue on. It becomes part of who you are on those changes. But yes, so hopefully that was a great survey and evaluation of goals and goal setting, motivation, habits, habit building, and a lot of different avenues and information as far as how to get into management of lifestyle choices and taking a perspective of lifelong wellness. Okay, so you can, after viewing all of these lectures, there's going to be some information posted for you to be able to start getting into your assignment. And hopefully you have found at least one part of these lectures that you can integrate into your life to start making little atomic habit changes and micro changes to your life that become automated and improve your wellness along one or many dimensions of wellness. Okay, thanks so much for listening, and enjoy the project. Cheers.